Welcome to What's Your Story, where we, Jamie Marco,
and Stan Brown.
delve into the extraordinary lives of everyday people.
Listen in as we uncover the unique tales that shape who we are.
One story at a time.
Hey, let's get ready to explore today's story.
Let's do it. Well, hello, Mr. Brown.
Greetings from Red Bull. Nice to see you.
I see that. Yeah, I got
always
off
want to be like an.
Huh?
I love the extreme athletes they have, but it's so tough to get to that level, man. It's like crazy stuff.
Oh, the Red Bull Alpha.
Yeah. Someone
Athlete.
said the guy met your friend Brian, who actually Tiffany's friend. I met Brian.
Yeah.
Apparently, he besides having multiple parachute jumps, he also wore one of those what do you call them, squirrel suits. I didn't get to follow up with that.
Wait, what?
You know what the squirrel suit is?
No.
Well, you know what base
Oh,
jump
why when you go like this? No,
Yeah,
but no,
yeah,
you can't
yeah.
see. So yeah, okay, yeah.
That's crazy
No.
stuff. But he took his
Really?
motorcycle. He traveled with his motorcycle, man, from Florida, I think, to Alaska. Went through South America, separate trip. And one trip, apparently, he went. This is all solo, from China back to London.
On what?
A motorcycle.
How?
It's connected.
Wh- I need to look at a world map.
It's Asia through Europe. Boom, over.
When was that? Because I don't feel like it'd be as easy to do today.
That was a long deal. I don't know what he did. It's just a very unusual guy.
Wait, there's guys that you met holding the Tiffany from? Really? Well, okay, so here's my thing. Like these extreme athletes, like I have a friend who
You can't talk when you're chewing.
sorry, I'm trying to like multitask.
You can't do that.
It's an office day. I'm wearing a baseball cap. I'm like working. I'm trying to get stuff done. But so you wonder, like, these extreme athletes, like they do like the flu tag, even like then they would put together this thing and they try to like trample on off a bridge to see how far they can fly. Like all these things, I just always wonder, like, what is it with those people that why they want to do that? Like they're clearly putting their life in danger.
Well, I think if you ask them, it's pretty much when they're doing it, they have a real sense of vitality. They feel they're really alive at the moment itself. And they found they just study of brain waves. They actually, the brain waves will change when you're in that moment, in that particular activity, in that zone. The mind becomes very, very focused. There's almost like tunnel vision. All you see is the task ahead of you, and you're totally immersed in that particular moment. Nothing else happens around you.
No, I get that in the moment, but
You're saying
what
why? You're
makes
saying
that
motivation wise.
yeah, I mean, like, I forget what it was. There was like a documentary about the guy who climbed. I'm totally butchering this. And I watched it and just watching him do the climbing, and I think he ended up actually, did he die? I'm not going to quote it, but anyway, watching the video, what is it called? I can't remember. If you know,
Yeah.
please comment. But it was like insane to watch these climbers and like with no ropes and just going, and they know if they're going to fall, they are going to die. So
Well,
what
how,
makes
how
you
many
like, I don't know that I
how
could go
many
to work knowing
people
I'm gonna die.
how many people live their life on automatic?
A lot.
These people are feeling an intense reality. I am vitally alive. All my senses are clear right now. It's an intense feeling. It's a big high.
So you think they do it for the high?
That's too oversimplification. They do it to feel mostly alive, intensely alive.
Remember when we interviewed Amanda about in England and she does glass art and she was talking about her son who is the climber.
Yep.
We need to get him as a guest because I think that would be like fascinating because he is that type of person who he just does those things. Like he climbed like stadiums and he climbs rocks and he just goes and it's like, how do you like you have no idea if you're gonna live.
Listen, you do one of the most terrifying things for the general public, talking public speaking, to get up in front of a group
I'm
and
not
talk
gonna
to
die
people.
from it.
Well, but I'm saying people they just can't, they're freeze, they can't do it. They don't
Wow.
think they're going to die from it. It just gives them an intense feeling of great satisfaction when they're overly competent, they're unconsciously competent in what they're doing.
I talk about that all the time, but I feel like when you're in autopilot, there's accidents happen, and I think that's why we
Well,
most
get some, any extreme athletes out there, come on down. Come on, talk to us.
yeah. All right, well, let's talk about someone else from a different extreme who is maybe not an athlete, but is an extreme in the way that he connects with people. And let me just tell you, this individual taught me how to hug. He taught me how to really give a hug to where you don't let go until like the other person's ready for you to let go. And it's amazing. You've met him before. Our listeners may know him, but why don't we just bring him in? What do you think?
That'd be a good idea.
Oh, let's go. Here we go. Here we go, here we go. There he is, la la la. I don't see him.
Michael, come
Michael,
on
are you
down.
there? Are you there, Michael? Oh my goodness.
I'm
Oh.
here.
The
I'm here.
hills are alive with Michael. You guys can't see, but his background looks like he's in the hills of somewhere. Hello, Michael Kline.
Hello, Jamie, Marco. Hey,
Oh my gosh.
Nice to
Dan.
see you.
You again? This is
We
fun.
are so happy to see you. So I had just said my intro, we were introing. That's why I was keeping you in
Oh,
the waiting wings. Hopefully you got your green M&Ms in the green room. Um, I was just saying that you are the person who taught me how to really hug.
aw, I
And
love that.
so I want you to know that, and we'll get into that in a moment because I think there's like you have a methodology behind it. But we're going to start the way that we start every session, or we have been starting lately.
Oh, here we go again.
Dad, why don't you ask him? Go ahead. You know it so well. You ask, Dad. Go.
Michael,
Wait.
there's a moment in time we want to gauge your consciousness, so to speak, or you're just feeling. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is kind of pretty low down, pretty crappy, but 10 is off the chart, you feel fabulous. How would you rate yourself at this particular moment in time?
Mm, I'm well, now that you brought up the fact that your green room did not actually have any M&Ms or anything else in there, it was a
Green
10
screen, green screen.
it was a 10 until I got to your crappy little green screen with no
Now
food in it.
Oh,
we'll quit
oh,
that.
Boy,
10 is
this
great. Thank you,
son of
Michael.
a
Next question.
ow, that hurt.
No, I'm really it's just been fantastic. The fact that we can have fun with a pretend green screen, like it should, is it's a pretty telling sign that, it's like that life is full of joy and
Looks great.
opportunity to laugh every step of the way. So
And your number?
I'm going with 10.
Woo! Well, okay, so speaking of that,
Again, and then he pulls out this lollipop like that I didn't get.
I got
There's
stuff for
always
everybody.
something missing if we want to focus on
Dad, is it a
it.
Tootsie Pop or is it my dad's eating for those that are not watching and are listening, you're lucky because Dad today, is it a Tootsie Pop or a bubble or
It's a 50 calorie Tootsie Pop. Yes, they're very good.
oh, how many licks does it take for you to get to the Tootsie Pop?
Never counted. No, I don't do this stuff. You're
It's
there
only
when you
50
get there when you're
calories.
there.
How many licks could it be worth? I don't know. I want a lot more calories.
Well, Michael, our listener can't see this, but if they're watching on YouTube, they can. There is a gorgeous view behind you on your
Uh-huh.
green. I don't think you're there because you're dressed differently than I would imagine to be dressed if you were there. But I have a feeling I know where that is. But share with us what's going on in the background and why'd you choose
This
that today?
is this is a little town in Costa Rica.
Hmm.
I just got back from just before Thanksgiving. I got back from 3 weeks of my Spanish immersion class and
Ooh.
staying with the host family. Basically, I had my the things you do in college or high school that it seemed like all the cool kids got to do and I didn't do. So I finally did it. It was one of my 3 gifts for my 60th year. One of them was to hike across Costa Rica, which we did, which is when I took this picture. We stayed with a little family in this town as well over the summer. And then to learn another language was the second of my 3 gifts. And the third one was to do the TEDx talk, which we did
Yes.
together in March. So I just finished my Spanish immersion course, which was fantastic. So this background picture is Costa Rica.
Good
Well,
Somewhere in the
choice.
hola,
Central Valley.
hola, ¿cómo te llamas? No, see, no, we're not
I'm
going.
not. No, let's not go. Let's not go there. It turns out I can now honestly say that I can say it in Spanish that I speak Spanish if you are patient enough to
Mm.
spend a half an hour with me getting out each little sentence. We can
I used
muddle
to
through.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
hablo español. Um, wait, habla, what did I say?
I
Más
like the fact
despacio, más
my shirt
despacio.
blends with your scenery.
Right? We should just switch. You come over to the square and I'll
Yeah,
come
take my
down there.
shirt, please.
But
That's I'm
you
I'm
you have a place down there, don't you? Like, don't you have a place where you live down there part-time of the year in Costa Rica?
No, we don't live there
I
part-time.
thought you did.
I think I got to spend 10 weeks this year. We did buy into a retreat center in Guanacaste, so we get to host retreats at our own place, and that's amazing.
How long
And
was
we
the
have
hike, Michael?
the hike was 286K, so 175 miles.
Wow.
And surprisingly, these mountain ranges amount to about 17,000 feet of vertical gain and loss when you're going up and down and up and down across the
Wow.
trail, the El Camino de Costa Rica. So it was quite a journey.
You slept under the
Well,
stars, of course.
Sorry.
You slept under the stars.
Um, we camped. We did sleep in tents. I did sleep outside. We did sleep in some private homes, and we stayed in some rustic lodges, and several nights we slept in tents, sometimes on the dirt, sometimes on
How
raised
many people? You
platforms.
and son, just two people or more?
No, my brother and a good friend of mine and I went with a group of 12
Wow.
and two professional guides. And
Fabulous.
if you want to do it really thoroughly, if you really want to go and stay in, like, there's 2 nights that we stayed on indigenous lands in a community there that is only accessible by a couple hours of hiking on foot to the top of a mountain. And there's really no outside connection to the rest of the
Mm.
world, which is really fascinating. And so to get to do that, you have to have a guide, and you have to meet their local representative that'll meet you as you hoist across a really wide river. You hoist across in a metal basket on cables. You
You
get
got
to
you
the
got pictures, haven't you?
I got
Lots of
lots of
pictures.
pictures. And
Wow.
then you get to the beginning of a new trailhead, if you will, on the other side of the river, and their guide comes down and meets you there, and you hike up for about an hour and a half to that community. So you really need a guide to do this. And there's lots of people say, nah, I can do it on my own. There's lots of places where there's turns in the roads and the trails that aren't marked, or that are marked to point in that direction. And our
Sure.
guide said, we're not going that way. We know a long cut. And
Mhm.
literally, I'm following the guide. He's got his machete out and he's hacking away the trail as we go because it grows in. And we were the only, this company's group is the only group going this way.
Wow.
And he said, well, they're having, the trail is very young. The El Camino in Costa Rica, most people don't know it exists. It's maybe 6 years old now.
Okay.
Only about 500 or 600 people have done it. And there's still negotiation going on with private landowners and farmers and protected forests and all of that are being navigated. And so it's fluid. So who's to say what's the official trail?
Wow,
We
what a
might go
story.
this way and we might add a couple of kilometers. We might go that way and shave off a couple of kilometers. There's no, yeah, you still get your little passport stamped at the end of every stage if you want
Oh,
to. But in
really?
between, it's a little loosey-goosey. So I really got to do it with a guide. And we're
And
going to
did
do it
you
next
feel,
year.
well, did you feel safe?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I feel safer there than most places in the States, I would say.
Well, I'm just
And
curious.
you,
Those are some three interesting goals for your 60th year.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious why those three things?
It's what came to me. It was this time last year. It was this time last year. It was in no, maybe it was or sometime in November. I just gotten back from a couple of retreats that we had hosted, and I came back and I had this epiphany about being joyful. That joy is not emotion like sadness or happiness that flows through us. Well, I guess any emotion can become characteristic of you, right? I think most people would say, oh, Jaime, she is, and give a characteristic of you that your joyful way, your happiness comes through. It's like you're a caring person. They could use a lot of emotional words that become characteristic of you, that you're generally a happy person. And happiness is a flowing feeling, just like sadness and anger and grief and all these other ones. But I discovered about a year ago that really, I would say I discovered it experientially rather than just having it as a philosophy. And I got to experience this profound level of joy that I realized I am a joyful person who gets to have sad and happy and angry, and I get to have grief, I get to have
the whole
rage, I
spectrum.
get to have the whole full human experience, and never giving up being a joyful person.
Hmm.
And so I was looking at the same time realizing, hey, I'm turning 60 in a minute. What am I going to do with that? And just the things that I've always wanted to learn a foreign language and didn't. And so it was just one of those things. And I think as serendipity would have it, I think it was a Facebook post or something. As somewhere I saw this thing that National Geographic had talked about, this amazing tour, this hike, the El Camino de Costa Rica, and I'd always wanted to do the El Camino de Santiago in Europe, and I thought, no way, there's one in Costa Rica. What's that involved? And it's really just about a 3-week trip. And I said, well, that's a whole lot easier, a whole lot more accessible, and so really fascinating. I get to know every inch of this country I'm falling in love with. Let's do it. And so the idea is to just say yes. And those are these three things came up while I was in this realization that I can say yes to the things that bring joy to me or others, and not put hurdles in front of me, not to make up excuses for why it's too difficult or too expensive, for how would that work. And everything about all three of the experiences has just been weaving together, and like the road building itself in front of me. Like even when I was there last 3 weeks, I wanted to meet with the it seemed like the chief tour guide that we met from this company from Trek that really seemed to know the most about the trail. And he was only with us for a few days because he was there doing what he was doing, and then he was not going to do the whole trip with us. But sort of befriended him and connected on social media. And I see him hiking all over the world still. And I said, I want to connect with him to plan a transformational men's retreat for next year, doing the best parts of this hike. And he would be the perfect guy to talk to about how to arrange that and to customize something with them. And I see Stan's leaning in.
Well, I'm gonna be 60 pretty soon. I'm
Transformational
looking forward to
retreat
this.
in the cloud forest for old geezers. I'm in. So I go to reach out with. I thought, well, maybe I'm there. I'm not that far from San Jose. I can go connect with him while I'm there for my Spanish classes. And wouldn't you know it, he happens to live in the same little town where I'm staying with the host family for my Spanish classes. It's like, okay, sometimes you just ride the horse in the direction it's going. Life is a lot easier. But when I'm in this mode of knowing that I have this joyful being that I am this joyful being, and I can just create the life I want and just say yes, and the hows do show up. So it's kind of like to get sappy with the law of attraction stuff. This is the law of attraction in real life, as opposed to try to manage it and wrestle it and do step 1, 2, and 3 and all this other stuff with it. That just being in it.
I love
So
that. Have you
yeah,
always set a 3 thing for a birthday, or was that just your 60th?
never. That was a brand new thing. I'm
Now, will you
willing to
do
do
that
it.
this year?
Yeah, I don't have to wait till my 70th. I think I'll do this again for my 61st.
Well, they could be like different. They don't have to be as
Yeah.
massively
Yeah.
big things. It could just be like, hey, I want to like eat at this restaurant, or I want to like,
Right.
I don't know,
You just said something massively important. You said they don't have to be this massively big thing.
hmm
And that's the thing. A year ago, well, I want to hike. I'm going to take a few weeks and hike across Costa Rica. Sounds like a big bucket list kind of thing. To
Yeah.
learn a foreign language sounds like a thing you do in your lifetime. Because I had tried many times to continue my French education, never worked. Bought this method, that method, all the different methods,
Right.
and doing a TED talk. All three of those things were really easy because I said yes, they were just easy. So, I mean, I know people who've just spent a long time or years trying and applying for the talks and all that. It feels like it was just right for me. I'm standing at Panera Bread, minding my own business, and I'm looking at the bulletin board, and there was a poster with a QR code. I went there. I filled out the form. Next thing you know, I have an interview. The next thing you know, I have another thing, and then and next thing you know, I'm on the stage just before you. So there we were.
Yeah.
And the same thing with this hike. It just unfolded. And I think, well, yeah, that's easy, but you have resources. And I can hear people listening to this making excuses in their head. Well, it's nice because you have money and you have time and you don't have a job, you don't have kids, all this stuff. And it's like, I do have a husband that says, how much is this going to cost?
You actually look like him when you just said that. I've met Sal,
I think
and
he
you
had
like
all the look.
literally transformed into looking like him. In that moment, I was like, "Whoa, that was Sal." No, go
All right.
ahead.
And I made money on that trip because I had 2 teeth to do some work on. And I saved more than what I saved in my dental work by having a dentist there, more than paid for the entire trip.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So it's amazing. And classes aren't terribly expensive. Staying in the student, how would you go stay with a family? I think
Yeah.
I paid $27 a night, including breakfast, dinner, a bed, a private room and a bathroom, and laundry once a week.
Did you go by yourself?
Yeah.
That
And
in itself,
these
I think,
small
is
classes,
profound.
classroom half a day, and you instantly make friends with other classmates and the family. I've adopted the family. I'm keeping them forever. It was an amazing experience, and it was affordable and more than paid for itself because why not figure out the dental thing. Everyone talks about it, and it's like, well, figure it out. It's amazing. So, but that opportunity to more than pay for it wouldn't have showed up if I hadn't said yes to it.
And we're not talking wooden teeth here, are we?
You can tell? Does it show?
Hey,
Great
okay.
brain.
Don't talk about
Wow.
teeth. I have like chipped my tooth.
Oh, stop it. I heard that
I need the
already.
dentist. No, I can't even get in for like a whole another week.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's cutting up my tongue. It's so annoying. It's driving me
Control your
mad.
tongue. That's all.
But they were like, well, you can't see it. And I smile. You can only see inside. They're like, well, so it's not like you can't, we're going to push you back. I'm like, but it's hurting me. Anyway, it's not about me.
Oh,
I think that's incredible though.
Yeah.
The fact that you could, I think that is a talent or a skill, or I don't know what you want to call it. The fact that you could just get up and go alone. We've interviewed a couple people actually have done that where they've just traveled solo. And I mean, like look at yourself now, 60, almost 61 years old, or 60, you aren't 61 yet, you're 60, right? Your birthday is in, yeah. So if you would have told yourself 30 years ago in your 30s, you're going to be traveling, and maybe you did, I don't know. I should probably ask that question first. But like, was that always something you were able to do, or did
Um,
you come into that as you
hmm,
got older and more confident and became more enough
hmm.
in your older age?
Both. So both. I would say when I was early 20s, I worked in the travel business. I was a travel agent
Oh.
and then managed. So but they're still different. So when you're a travel agent, you tend to travel, and if you work with a good agency, you have a lot of at least back in the day, we had a lot of benefits and privileges. So I could fly I think I did 19 countries while I was in that job, most of it flying first class.
Yeah, because they
Most of it
wine and
being
dine
hosted
you.
or traveling with little groups. So you're on a familiarization trip that's hosted by a tour company or a cruise line or a government tourism office. That was
Right.
my first trip to Costa Rica. I was hosted by their tourism office and a tour company working in partnership. So we stayed in nice hotels and got to do all the touristy things to do. And then I hadn't been back there in, I think, 30 years. That was like late 80s sometime. And so yeah, I had this travel experience, but it was pampered, taken care of, looked after. I never went anywhere on my own really.
Hmm.
So it is different. And so I think, um, and then I think as life gets different and easier and with its ups and downs, I was starting over again, I would say, to start traveling alone again, because it's really not really alone, but it's it's a level of trust and safety in yourself that I think I found that um, was missing, I think, was still missing my whole life. So if I set aside the fact that I had that job that took me places, and now as a real life human being, do I want to go alone? No, not really. I'd rather go play with friends.
Yeah.
And some people would think, oh, I would never go stay at a stranger's house and just have a bedroom and I don't even speak the language. And how's that going to be like? Is this going to be weird? And that's normal. I had a little bit of that feeling and I thought, nah, it's going to be great. And it was.
Yeah.
And I think if I had probably 20 years ago, I probably would have felt it was weird and been questioning it. And I might have been one of those students that hide in my room a lot and didn't interact with the family, which is what the
Yeah.
family tells me most people do.
Mm.
Mm.
And so they don't tend to interact too much with students because it's a two-way street and the student doesn't want to interact.
Yeah.
And I just moved in with them and made it a thing. So as they said, in 20 years of hosting, I'm the first person that they've kind of adopted and had that all the kids that are the grown children came and visited, brought their spouses. And then I went traveling with some of them and went to, play with them and go explore other little towns in the neighborhood, saw where they grew up, met their mother and grandmother. And just like, so
You're a
I
big
met
hit.
all the
Oh, sure.
in-laws and,
Yeah, but
um,
it's interesting because it's kind of like, nature versus nurture, or is it age versus experience? Like the more, like,
mhm.
listen, anyone that knows you, and listener, maybe you know Michael, maybe you haven't, but if you don't, you need to. Anyone that knows you knows that you are this like, we were just talking to someone the other day about energy takers, energy givers. You are an energy giver. Like you interact with people and people just want to be around you because you are oozing this incredible just love and connection and warmth. And so, I know part of your story, but that hasn't always been who you are. I mean, like, or has it? I mean, like, I don't think when you were like 6 years old, I mean, part of like the listener, if you don't know Michael, Google him. We did get the opportunity to do a TEDx talk together last year, and it was amazing. And his whole talk was about being enough. And it's amazing. I won't even ruin it for you, and I will probably butcher it if I even try to replicate it in any way on this call, but go watch it. But that love that we feel from you today in your 60 plus years of age, where did that start? Like, when did you start becoming that Michael?
There was the last big shift for me was at 50. Oh, well, I guess maybe it was my 50th birthday present because I was February of 10 years ago.
Mr. Decade
I
Man.
I signed up for a year-long training program with Jack Canfield. You know him from the Chicken
Yes.
Soup from the Soul Guy and all of that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he did. Now, what I didn't know he offered the world was he offered a year-long certification in for train the trainer. So to become a transformational trainer, to pull back the curtain and learn how to do that. And I had been in corporate training for a long time before that. My
Hmm.
travel agent job led me into it. I ended up being with this global travel franchise company and became the director of training and development with them. But I came up through the ranks. I never had any formal training on how to be a trainer. And I just, put me in front of the room and I do what my predecessor did, only
Right.
with more humor and wit and charm and all of that.
Um,
Let's
yeah.
At
just
least
go with that. That's
that's
my
what the
story.
comments were.
And
Yeah,
better looking and better shoes for sure.
absolutely. And so the truth is I felt like an imposter because to a degree I was, and I didn't know what I was doing. And the feedback I got from people was that I did know what I was doing. But if I had the slightest negative feedback, I would be so sensitive, hypersensitive to it. It's like I could have 100 people in the room and everybody gives me all fives and little star, everything else. And then one person gives me, four fives and a four because this could have been better. And it's like, oh my God, I'm panicking. It's like, and they hate me. And I'm there. My mother was right. So I think when I started that journey was so impactful because it was all personal stuff. And from day one in that year-long program, he took us deep into some self-awareness exercises that just blew my mind. That really opened my eyes to where it all began. And it began at my mother learning of my mother's death because he processed that from me on the stage in front of 100 people,
Oh
where
my.
I got to cry and blow snot all over Canfield's shoulder because what I had shared something innocent and easy, and because when Sal said, "How much is this going to cost?" I said, "Well, 20 grand and 3 weeks of travel throughout the year."
Mm.
But I'm going to sit down front and raise my hand every chance I get. I'm going to play full out. If I just stay home and read the book, it's not the same. I
Right.
need to be there. Don't know why. I'm just doing it. So I just raised my hand because I promised I would. I'm going to play. I did a little share, and he sensed that there was something
Deeper.
bigger there that wasn't being shared. And in a couple of minutes, he had me into this memory as a 7-year-old boy and being told not to cry and you have to be a grown up now. The trauma was not losing my mother. I mean, it was a traumatic event for a 7-year-old. That is not the trauma because that's not what stuck. Trauma is not the event, it's what's present now. And what was present now was the feeling that got stuck around you have to be a grown up now. And I'd been trying ever since. That's
Mm.
how I lived my childhood. And then trying to prove I'm enough and trying to be, what does it mean to be a grown up?
Mm.
And a 50-year-old man, not really, what does it mean to be a grown up? And
Mm.
could I learn to play again? And would that be okay? How do you play as an adult if you still think you have to be a grown up since you couldn't play as a kid? So it was pretty messed up. But it was so easy to shift. And at that same week, I met Dr. Deb Sandella, the curator of RIM. So then I got to spend the next 10 years playing with both of them. Last year is my first year not as part of Jack's team. I ended up working for him and being part of his.
Michael, who gave you that advice at that time of grief?
But what?
Who gave you that advice to be a grown up at that and don't cry at that time of your grief?
Oh, one of my siblings. I mean, he was 21 at the time. It was the sibling that had the arduous task of letting his younger brother and sister know that our mother had just died.
Mm.
And, he was a young man himself who just lost his mother and already was married and had 2 little kids and is taking care of his 7-year-old little brother and my little sister. So there's nothing wrong. No one did anything wrong. Everyone did the best they could where they
Sure.
were. And it just stuck with me. No one didn't, who knows how to process the trauma and say, well, did anyone ever tell you had to be those are the things that I find in my work with clients get stuck all the time.
Mhm.
It's the real thing that's keeping us back isn't the money or the fear or the, oh, I could never, or that would be too weird or it would cost too much or I have too many other things. it's really the old stuck emotions are always directing our current decisions, behaviors, and beliefs.
Yeah.
Old stuck emotions are always directing our current decisions, behaviors, and beliefs. And it's true for me too. It
Yeah.
still is.
It's interesting. I talk a lot about the words that we use directly impact the results that we get.
Mm-hmm.
So like you are a perfect example of that. Your brother in that moment was like, you need to be a grown up now. Like we've got a lot of big things to be doing as a family. And I think that obviously, I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there. I don't think there would be ever any ill intent in that comment,
No.
the way that it impacted you for the next 43 years of your life.
Yeah.
Just that simple. And I don't think people realize like literally the words that we use directly impact the results that we get. And we may not even see those results. We may not ever see it. And you're a perfect example of that. And I'm sure that you, with your work, and so for listeners that don't know, Michael is incredible in his work that he does in helping other people identify the cause or the root cause of their trauma. And you do workshops around that, you do healing around that, you do coaching around that, you do so many different things around that. And you've been doing that now for what, 10 years?
10 years since I stepped in it.
Ah,
Literally, how'd you
what
get
is
in it? I
RIM
stepped in it.
exactly? Well, and let our listeners know like what RIM is
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. But stands for regenerating images in memory. And it is, we're shifting how we talk about it now that we have research validating this, because it really is a way to dip beneath the logical thinking mind to tap into the stored emotional memory in our body, to dissolve the root cause of the stuck emotion, to dissolve the original stuck emotion. So we don't have to go back and relive the trauma. We can find most of the time, people don't know what the trauma is, or they have it because they have an event and they don't know, they assume that that's the event. So you might talk with a therapist or be working on it lots of different ways and say, it's because of this X event that all of this is how I feel in my life. And you can't change the past. It's like, well, first of all, we don't know that that's the event. What I've seen over and over and over again is that the thinking part of the mind does not have access to the stored emotional, stuck emotional experience. So it can talk about it, think about it, but how does it know that that's what's really stuck? And so with this technique, it's very simple. It's just it's a verbal technique we do over the phone, but how we facilitate it allows us to dip beneath the logical mind, to tap into enough body awareness to have something else spontaneously show up. And it's not usually the event you think it is. It's something else. And often it's so small things. It's so easy, and you can redo them. And so we can regenerate the images in memory, which is what RIM stands for. And the new science that is not yet published, because the latest research is still in that phase to become peer-reviewed research, it needs a period of time being peer-reviewed. So right now, peers are reviewing the research from UC Denver. And what they showed is, and what it will reveal is how RIM actually creates psychedelic-like effects in the brain without using any drugs. There's no plant medicine necessary. I'm a fan of the plant medicine. It is not for everyone. Most of the people on the planet will never have access to it, legal or otherwise. It's expensive. It's illegal. It's difficult to come by. New research that came out last year and in the last couple of years has been so promising. It's so much healing can be done, I think, with it. And we can do a lot of that healing right now that's totally accessible and legal and easy. And it's not talk therapy. That does not heal trauma. We know that. It just doesn't. It's not an opinion. This is what's been proven over and over. There are some techniques that are very impactful for certain kinds of trauma. And to really simplify it, I think we have to let go of being afraid of the word trauma. If you felt like, feeling like feeling like you're not good enough is bad enough. You don't have to have a specific trauma history that's bad enough to make it worse, or it doesn't have to be worse to be bad enough. That, the teacher who humiliated you at the third grade when you couldn't do a, spelling thing or whatever. If that memory pops in and is showing up and directing your decisions in the staff meetings, or how you interact with coworkers, then this is a current stuck emotion that's directing your current behavior.
Yeah.
And we don't have to go exploring, look for it and remember it. It'll pop up naturally in a session. And then we
So,
get
but
to redo it.
Michael, so how do we, if we become more aware of what the stuck emotion is,
Mhm.
how do we cross that Rubicon to feeling better or discarding, letting it not affect you anymore?
So, Stan, if I asked you to think of a time, I would already be talking to the thinking part of your brain.
Okay.
If I ask you to think of a time in your childhood where you felt this way, your thinking mind is spinning. It's probably spinning now because we're talking about it. It'll be thinking of stuff. And that part of the brain, the science is clear on this, that part of the brain does not have access
To the
to the
emotional.
nonverbal part of the brain that stores these emotions, which are also stored in the body and in our nervous system, the emotional memory. So if I had you close your eyes and we do some what we call body sensing, and we get into going inward, looking at your inner landscape and just exploring. And it's not a trance, it's not like hypnosis, it's quite the opposite actually, but it does feel, when people describe it, they say it's sort of like dipping into a dreamlike experience, not a state necessarily, but an experience. And now, when you make things tangible for the thinking mind, like what you're sensing in your body, and then you maybe have heard experiences, other tools that are out there that use a size, a shape, a color, a form to something. Now the thinking mind thinks it's tangible and can work with that. The feeling is intangible. You're never going to talk your way through it. But once the thinking mind has some imagery, we can play with that. Now, when we imagine moving into that, all sorts of other things show up. And then someone will say, well, this is really weird. That's how they start almost all the time. This is really weird, but, and whatever's coming next, we're getting somewhere now. Because now they'll say, well, this is really weird. I haven't thought of this in 50 years. But when I was a little boy, I was riding my tricycle and then I left it here. And then they go into this experience and this memory that shows up. And so when we get to like unresolved grief is a huge thing. I found people, I had a client recently is 80 years old, um, and was talking about, finally retiring from his profession. He's been doing this forever. And who am I without being this
Mhm.
profession? And he realized that he's always been angry, and everybody's always thought he was just an angry person. He was famous for being angry. And that the first thing came up was unresolved grief as a boy, not getting to grieve his grandmother when she died.
Hmm.
And so we can still do that. We can still imagine being that boy and speaking to your grandmother on her deathbed if you want to, or speaking to your dad or your mom or whoever told you, and redoing that scene. We can redo that. Your nervous system will treat that imagined event, when it's done well, it will treat that like a real event. And so we do get to time travel and change the past as far as your nervous system is concerned, and it feels real. And so when we can go back to that point of trauma, whether it was the chalkboard or the grief that didn't get expressed, or a horrible accident, or violence, or a whole lifetime of neglect or abuse, whatever it is, we can go back to the point wherever the emotion was stuck. We don't have to worry about how big or how small it is. And you get to redo that, but with safety and agency and voice, and a sense of that this is okay to go through it, and we will make it safe to go through it. And you don't have to do anything. You're always in charge of it. And so you're safe and in charge, which was not the experience when an emotion gets stuck.
Yeah.
Typically
And
done
so in the
in
redo,
a
it's very good.
one-on-one session or
Yeah,
in a group setting or a one-on-one
both.
session.
I do a lot of groups. It generally goes much deeper with individual
Sure.
sessions. However, I've had people just be in a group and go on their own journey. So it feels a little more like guided imagery, but it's not, because you're still creating your own experience. But we don't get to follow you to help facilitate it going deeper. And yet people have had, massive shifts just from participating in groups.
So it's finding where the trauma was and reversing the emotional impact.
Well, yeah, I never thought about the word reversing, but certainly, yeah, if the emotion was stuck and now it's not, right? Because reversing sounds like we have to turn something around and go the other way. And so if you picture a river, the water flowing through a river, emotions flow through our body like that. If you resist the river, if you build a dam in the river,
Mhm.
the water does not reverse and go back upstream. you end up building a dam and that floods it and makes a lake. So now you're flooded with the things you were trying to resist. So we want to allow the emotions to keep flowing. And over the years, we've thrown boulders of resistance in there. We've built complete dams sometimes, so nothing's flowing, and we're flooded with all this old stuck crap that we're so afraid of, or that's too painful to allow it to flow.
So every session would probably terminate in really an emotional release.
Yeah. Well, we call them floodgates. So now in the dam, now we can gently open the dam in such a way that we're not going to blow it up. We're not going to, we can allow the old stuck emotions. Once we identify it, well, this memory pops in, third grade chalkboard scene. Okay, that's a boulder that got thrown into the river. When you dissolve that boulder, because now when you redo it, it's like those old stuck emotions are now gone. And most people do several of these. Like I usually recommend to people like 5 sessions. I don't want to hear your stories for the next 5 years. Let's just do 5 sessions. Because if you dissolve, I don't know what it is about. It's not like there's a magic number to it. It just seems that's what most people do. If by the time you dissolve 5 of these big boulders, you no longer have a dam. You now have free flowing emotions and everything seems to flow better now. And it's like it can be a revamp of your whole life once you let go of the thing that started the anger or that started the whatever.
I wonder, Michael, like I think about therapy and what you're doing is very new age, or I would call it new age. I don't know if that's the accurate term or not. It's been around for a little bit, but do you see a generational gap of the people that do want to even get that healing versus the people that are saying, you know what happened, like I nothing can like, you know, like is there, you know, like I think of my grandmother and I remember asking her questions on recording her and just asking her different questions. I said, what was the best part of your childhood? And she was like, nothing. And it broke my heart. But I don't think that she ever, I mean, I think she carried a lot of sadness with her because of the time she was born in the 20s and the life that she had in a foreign country. And so, like, do you see that people that are asking for the healing are of a certain generation, or does it cross the generational gap?
It for me, it's the same. There's no generation gap. In the trauma, and it ties to another topic, the topic of generational trauma
Mm.
and or generational, is it passed on in the DNA? Is it inherited memories? Is it inherited trauma? Is it just passed on through and it's also passed on through lifestyle and how we live and the stories that get told and the um, just the behavior, the subtle behavior. It's like if you're walking down the street and mom is holding your hand when you're 3 years old and you're walking on the sidewalk and she sees someone who looks scary to her and she holds your hand a little tighter, your nervous system is responding
Oh.
to her fear.
My daughter's gonna need this therapy and
Right?
like
20 years, yeah. Now, if your daughter, so we all know that you were once inside your mother.
hmm
Your daughter also was once inside your mother.
Mm. Mm.
Every egg that a woman ever has is formed in her body before she's born.
Mm.
So the egg that becomes your children were in you before, while you were still in your mother.
That's crazy thought.
And so this has always been true. This isn't a new thing. And so when we think about the generational connection, that we know it's crystal clear. There's no argument about the effects of like drugs and alcohol on a baby in utero, right? So people don't smoke and drink and do drugs when they're allegedly, we don't do that when we're pregnant, and it will have an impact on the baby. So
Right.
do other stressors. So now the baby, the unborn baby, and every cell in its body is inside the same environment for
Mm.
emotional and biological stressors.
Mm.
So it's not a big stretch to see how the generational impact. It's not as simple as there's this cutoff, like your daughter's not related to her grandmother,
She's
right?
much her grandmother and grandfather's
Yeah.
grandchild.
And the research from Holocaust survivors and from the internment camps of the Japanese in World War II in the United States and from Rwanda and from other places around the world showed generational trauma symptoms only for 3 generations because we only have 3 generations of research so far. In white mice, they show inherited memories go on for 7 generations.
Hmm.
Wow.
So we don't know, is it inherited trauma? Is it inherited memories? In mice, it's actually the memory. But there's so much going on there. And so there's a lot of exciting talk about generational trauma. And Dr. Deb's been teaching this for 20 years, but never really promoted it or talked about it, because people in the more education you have, the more time you have in academia, the more you sound like a nutcase when you come up with a new idea. And now it's mainstream. Gabor Mate, who says all trauma is generational, and
Wow.
it stays present until it's processed. And so we have, as far as I know, RIM is the only technique that actually directly deals with the generational trauma without claiming to be the expert on what needs to happen. Because I know there's one other technique that will have you interview family members, and the therapist is still the position as the expert. And the human hasn't yet been born that has access to knowing what I need or what you need. Right? We have to figure it out. Oh, it's probably generational. Well, go interview your grandmother. So ask your grandmother if she ever knew. It's not about figuring it out. The thinking mind doesn't have access. That when we follow the same technique that'll bring up the 3rd grade chalkboard scene, sometimes we go into just using the power of imagination. We can have a dialogue with our parents or grandparents, or we can go all the way back, 100 generations, and just allow imagination to bring forth this experience and do a virtual RIM session for some ancestors somewhere out there. And when the healing happens there, and we imagine all of that coming back through the generations, this is where people often do their biggest healing work. And I don't have to know how it all works to have seen it work over and over again. And now we have more research supporting it, but it's really very exciting. And it's as ineffable, the ineffable scale that is part of the research for doing psilocybin research. We use the researchers in Denver at Colorado University use the same ineffability scale. And so it is as ineffable as doing mushrooms or bufo or ayahuasca or something. So you go up, you do psychedelic plant medicines. It's very hard to describe the things that happen because they're like dreams, but they're outrageous sometimes. When you try to describe a dream, how often does it fall apart? You really can't communicate to someone else all this. It was really crazy because it was like I was here, but I was there. It's like, and so it doesn't matter what shows up. Why can't we imagine that we're doing a session for someone that's 1,000 years ago, that's an ancestor, and that this was happening? And it's always so real to people. And I've, in my own experiences, that, how the healing works or why it works when it's easy and doable.
Michael, a question. Does this psilocybin or the compound itself, does it open a pathway for the thinking mind into the emotional mind?
I am not qualified to answer that question, and I'm happy to anyway, but I'm not qualified.
I do that all the time.
Your
I
opinion is
answer questions I'm
valuable.
not qualified to answer all the time.
My wholly unscientific, unqualified answer. I believe based only on my experience, and I'm even there. I'm so wholly unqualified. People that really work with this. I've only done 3. I've done 3 psilocybin journeys, and in my estimation, we're really bypassing the thinking. We're setting aside the egoic thinking part of the mind so that we have access to other parts of our brain and our body memory and all of that is not the egoic thinking mind. And I think that's similar with most of the plant, or if not all the plant medicines that I've experienced, is if I can set aside my egoic thinking mind, it's like I can do that with meditation. I say I can do that with meditation. I can do that a little teeny tiny bit with meditation. I've done the Buddha jail thing. I've done the 10-day sitting in silent meditation. And so I've had glimpses of that just in meditation. For me, it's much easier with RIM to facilitate people getting there and to get myself there, or for others to get someone to facilitate me there. And I think the medicines can really turn off that part of the brain that gets in the way. I don't think it's doing as much as it is getting our egoic thinking mind out of the way. And now we have access to see something else, and have different experiences. And I've experienced a lot of healing in that. I've experienced very similar healing in RIM and I can see it in meditation, although I didn't have those big experiences, and in just with holotropic breath work.
But as a result, after the experience, it does alter and modify the thinking into the brain.
Mm, yes, and kind of. I think that there's a missing piece for most people, especially this is some of the dangers of the potential legalizing of all of this. These are the big questions for the high-powered minds, to figure out what sort of follow-up and what sort of integration is necessary, and what is the quality, and how do you quality control the therapy that goes along with like are happening in the trials. Because the psilocybin work with a single dose has produced, like, I think more than 80% of people with certain levels of depression and anxiety have been like completely cured. And it is not just, they don't mail them a pill. All right.
Mhm.
So it's a facilitated experience, and there's the consulting that goes with this, I'll call it. I don't even want to call it therapy, but it is a facilitated experience, and what is happening in that session. And so we've also begun to experiment a little bit with we've had a couple of experiences of using RIM for integration, for people to really get more, what now? You've spent a day on mushrooms, now what? So that it doesn't just be a recreational experience. How do you integrate the benefits? Are there benefits? What are they? How do you integrate them into your life? And the group of people that we had do 2 group RIM experiences the day after a mushroom experience, universally said this was amazing. They felt so different. Like they now know and understand and feel they really can see and feel the tangible benefits of their mushroom experience, instead of just being blissed out. And I don't want to minimize that, saying that people just get blissed out. But there's how do I get more? How do I get healing out of this? How do I become aware of the healing? If I naturally got the healing already, how do I bring that more into my conscious awareness? And how do I change my life that is now a lifetime of habit, of habituated behavior based on my old trauma? So I behaved in a certain way to keep myself safe. Now that I've done this healing, how do I change my behavior that is habituated so I don't have to keep being that way, or stay in my self-limiting beliefs and thoughts and all of that? And so I think the integration is really key. And I think that we can do it we don't have to worry about how to get access to these things that aren't legal in the States, or what state you're in, depending on what country you are. I've only ever traveled abroad to do it where it's legal. But to do it here, I think it's unachievable for most people. So if we can do that without the plant medicines, we don't have to then integrate it back into our awareness, because in the RIM work, it's a whole brain experience. Your thinking part of your brain comes along for the ride as a working partner in it. So there's no integration step
So you
necessary.
probably say everybody on the planet really has a level of trauma. It's just a question of degree.
Mm-hmm. And we don't have to worry about the degree. When I ask, as you know, because I talked about this in the TEDx talk, when I asked Bessel van der Kolk about that, he says there is no small tree trauma. Feeling like no one cares is not a small thing. And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. So we can let go. It's just old stuck emotions. So if that's all it is, and we've been taught to be afraid of our feelings, if we just allow the feelings, if it's coming, it's going. And if you resist it, you'll be hanging on to it for the rest of your life. So do you want to let it pass through you, or do you want to hang on to it for life? It's too scary and painful. So most of us hang on to it for the rest of our lives.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And my job is to teach people how to teach more coaches and therapists how to work with people with that, so that they can just move through it. It doesn't have to be that hard and scary.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Question, kind of on topic, off topic. Ayahuasca. Has it been around, like, how long is that? But I feel like it's only been around for a few years. Has that been something but it's ancient medicine?
Ancient.
And
Yeah, at least 5,000 years. Some people say 10.
Right, but I've only been hearing about it for like the
Yeah.
last maybe like 5, 10 years.
Hmm.
So where is that? Where did that come from? Or like, and for those that don't know what that
Yeah.
is, it's basically a psychedelic where, and this is what
Yeah.
I picture. I picture it like the movies that you see, the TV shows where you go in and you take it and you're in a tent and then you're like you said, you're seeing all these different like dreamlike state things and you're supposedly you come out and you're like, you had this epiphany of like where your life needs to be. I've never done it. Dad, have you ever done it?
No,
You want to do it together?
no.
Yeah, do it separate.
Is this being recorded in Florida?
Yes.
The free state of
Well,
Florida?
you
Um,
can, it's funny, it's legal in Florida. There are some places in California and in Texas and there's one in Orlando where these churches pop up because as part of a spiritual experience, it's legal as they're part of this
Hmm.
church. I'll put with little air quotes around it.
oh,
Um, Not a fan myself. I mean, they do a lot of work. They've never hurt anybody that I've heard of, but it feels like what I've experienced for going on a 7-day retreat in Costa Rica to do 4 experiences is very different than doing 2 experiences on a weekend, like pop in on a Friday after work and go home. To me, it just doesn't feel the same. I don't know that there's a level of emotional safety. Just
yeah.
because nobody died doesn't mean there was no damage. I really want a lot of support around, and especially people doing it for the first time, that there's a lot of emotional safety that I think needs to be considered along with the physical safety. Um, but yeah, I think so it's sort of, so it is what it is. I mean, there's a lot, everyone has a different experience. People talk so much about the purging, diarrhea and vomiting. Why would you want to do that? That
No,
was
it's
not
like,
my experience. My
mhm.
purging is sweating and laughing and crying, and I'm perfectly happy crying all night or laughing all night or sweating, whatever. Um, and I think people that are interested in it should ask the Google, read a couple. There's a little tiny book on what you experienced, and I wish I could remember the name of it. Um, I can get it, Tori, if you have a place where you're going to put notes in this after the recording. I could give you that as a resource. Really does a nice job of explaining what to expect, so it's not all that crazy and scary as people make it sound. And it's not for everyone, and I think all of them are. I would say start with a RIM session. It's a whole lot cheaper and easier and
Yeah.
safer.
What
And then
are
go,
the roots in Awagashka? Is it American Indian or Indian Indian or
what's that?
cross culture? The roots of where it started.
I think similar things have been going on in different cultures around the world, mostly from South America. Peru and Colombia is very big. Mhm. And and different similar and different things and out of coming in from Africa as well.
Hmm.
So and I haven't tried them all, but I think
There's still time.
But I think
that's
that
right.
like it's not even that. Like we had a guest on and he spoke about how he immersed himself. I think it was like dead 3 or 5 days in pitch
I
black.
think it was a 7 day, which is crazy.
Right? Yeah.
And like I think that like listen, putting yourself in any sort of extreme deficit of what you're used to, and I'm
Hmm.
probably butchering that, gives some clarity, right? Like I think, getting rid of
Suppose.
your cell phone for a week and not using it. I remember like a few weeks ago, my phone was just dying on me. Like it just was not working, it wasn't turning on. So oh my gosh, wait till you hear this. I had to drive around without a phone and I couldn't contact people and they couldn't contact me. And I had to like figure out where I was going navigation wise. I only had my car
That's
navigation.
not on the same level as a 3 day silent
It's
retreat.
not. I know it's not. Okay, it's not
I hear
about
you.
on the same level of what we started off with, but I think that at any time you make a sacrifice of the things that you have today, it helps you focus on the things that are really important, right? So meditation, if you meditate every single day, that probably helps people with the trauma they have in their life by just finding clarity moving forward. Obviously, doing RIM therapy is huge because it gets to the root of things. Doing ayahuasca or doing other plant medicine or shutting off or going in the dark for 5 days. I think that what people don't realize is that, my dad, we started off this conversation, I think it was this one or a different one, but how many of it people do we know that are just on autopilot? They're just on, is that today? We had this
Mhm.
conversation at some point. They're just on autopilot, right? They just wake up, they brush their teeth, they get out of bed, they go to the bathroom, they shower, they make breakfast. They're just constantly on autopilot and they're not happy. We started off the conversation, like you said, Michael, about being happy or feeling happy and having the opportunity to have these other emotions to come through you. And I think that is unfortunately the majority of the people in this world today that we don't know why, or sometimes we don't even spend time to figure out why. That's why the term negative Nancy. Sorry, I have a really good friend named Nancy. I love you, Nancy. I change it to negative Nelly or, whatever it is that we think people are just they're that way because they're that way, right? Like your friend was, the person that you knew was that they were just angry all the time. No one knew about the grandfather. We don't ask questions. We don't connect. We just like we'd
Yeah, but
rather
Jamie,
like,
there's so much more about life that they have no awareness of.
Yeah.
right. So I think the first step is like, wanting to heal inside. Like you have to want to heal, but also in order to heal, you have to sacrifice something. And that maybe sacrifice isn't the right word.
Yeah, probably not. I hear what you're saying about like the deprivation thing. I would not do that. I'm not, I mean, never say never, but I ain't ever gonna do that. I'm not gonna say I know one person who did the 7 days stuff in the dark, and I don't want to do that. You got to find out what works for you.
Sure.
And for me, it's like the hike was huge. That was such a transformational experience. This last 3 weeks, staying with a local family in a very humble, sweet little house. It's like they don't have hot water in the house anywhere. It's not a norm. Here, if our hot water heater breaks, we have to get it fixed. I have to get it delivered today because I don't have any hot water.
Yeah.
And there it's like, well, we don't have hot water in the house. So it's not a problem. There's nothing to break. So you get used to a cold shower. Do I want to take a cold plunge every morning? No, thanks. I have lots of my friends that do that because it makes their life better or they make more money or something. I don't know. I'm not interested.
You know what? You're younger because you did a cold plunge every day. There you go.
Yeah, no thanks. No thanks. So I am going to do a men's retreat. My friend John and I, who did the whole hike last year, we're going to take the highlights, best days of the 3 week hike, and we're going to create a program. So we'll be out in the cloud forests and hiking through coffee plantations. And I think we'll be staying in this little village and hiking on the trail that I took this picture from. And so we're going to create a process around this that will be infused with RIM, that will be infused with really easy workshops that you'll never know you're in a workshop because we're kind of taking a hike with, I don't know, 8 or 10 people maybe. Well, it'll be an intimate little group with some professional guides and doing really cool things because we know there's something else. We know that, just because you're successful doesn't mean you always feel that way. And what is it that we're really looking for? What's really next in our lives that really matters to us? And how do I tap into that? How do I actually be the joyful, loving person I want to be more often than not and still give myself permission to be a total cluster of a human that we get to be, and know that that's okay. So we're working on that. And I have I don't know if you have a way, is there a week I can share some links. I'll share that book if you remind me, the ayahuasca book, but also the a link on more information about RIM and our 5-step, because my whole thing is about enoughness. So on the enoughnessguy.com, on the website, the enoughnessguy.com has the TED Talk first, and right below that is a place to sign up for the 5-step Path to Enoughness starter kit.
Amazing. Oh, I love that. Because I think that's the thing is, right? Like people are sometimes weary of trying something new. So I love there's a starter kit. I just absolutely adore you, Michael. I'm so grateful that you've given us
mutual
time. I wish we could connect more. I wish that there was like, and I shouldn't say I wish. It's just, life is just crazy. You've been gone. I've been gone. We're all gone mentally, physically. I know. But thank you for finding time in your day to talk with us and to share with us about your path and your story. And this is like a dot in your life story. I mean, like this was just like a moment in time of what you share with us. And it's so fascinating. And I'm so grateful that you talk through things that I think people are going to really connect with. And so thank you for
I'm so
being
glad.
So we can
Well,
actually
it's an
say,
honor.
just like the answer to the Peggy Lee song, is that all there is? The question is, yes, there is a lot more.
Yes. Yeah. Well said, Stan. Excellent. So thanks for having me. Great to be with you guys.
I appreciate you.
Have a great rest of your week.
Yeah,
And
thank
let's talk
you.
soon.
I
I'll
will
bump into you at the
definitely.
grocery store or something
Pick
if
your
I have
I
to.
flavor
love
next
it.
time, okay?
Oh
Pick
yeah,
your
what would
flavor.
be your flavor? Like, what's your favorite flavor lollipop? What would be your green room snack?
Oh my God. Don't think I've had a lollipop in 50 years. I like now as I think about it, I feel like I should be choosing the flavor by the color. I want red.
Well,
Or
there's
but
a
what's your green
cherry,
room snack? Like,
there's a
it doesn't
red
be
cherry,
lollipop.
there's a pomegranate, and there's a raspberry. They're all
Yeah, but it
red.
doesn't be lollipop. Like, what would be
I
your
thought
green room
raspberry was
snack?
blue. All right, I'll take a blue one. All right.
But what would be your green room snack? Like, if you were in the green room, we have the next time we have you on the live version. What's the snack you want in your green room?
What's the imaginary snack in the green room? Well, let's just have coffee and croissants.
All right,
Done.
done, done.
And they're
All right.
imaginary croissants, so I'm not gonna have to worry about getting crumbs all over me, chocolate on my cheek.
Bye,
All
Michael.
right.
Thanks,
Thank
Bye,
Michael.
guys.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Oh, goodness. Wow.
Mm. Heavy duty stuff.
I mean, and like you never know where the conversation's going to go, right? Holy moly.
Well, you and I discussed the famous word called introspection.
Yeah.
And when I was first introduced to it, probably in 11th grade, I had no idea what it was. Most adults don't know what it is. It's a
Yeah.
matter of just turning inward to some degree. And like the song, is that all there is? No, there's a lot more than that. But people get caught up in their own little universe. They become the sun in their own individual world, traveling around themselves. And you don't grow it that way. You don't get any further.
Yeah.
I think, the trauma situation, that's an individual situation. We've all probably had something. Depends. You live in the thinking mind. It's impacted by the subconscious and the emotional mind, but it depends how you want to deal with it. I mean, that's not that could you do a 3-week hike through Costa Rica? Not everybody can do that.
I'm just looking to do a 14er in Denver at some point this summer, I think.
One of the mountains?
Yeah, you want to come?
No. I can't breathe at 7,000 feet. 14,000? I'd be gasping for air. Are you kidding?
I appreciate your honesty. Well, go
Hey,
enjoy your lollipop. Lollipop,
did you mean
lollipop,
go enjoy your lolly
pop.
pop?
Oh yeah, go enjoy your lollipops. All right, Dad, I love you.
Love you. We're carrying a wide variety of. There's a spectrum of all kinds of things going on here. Did he?
Oh.
He started this rim thing or what?
He started training when he started doing the Jack Canfield training. He met
No, but what is rim his project?
he does, it's not his thing, but he
Okay.
does that thing. Yeah. So he like he met this woman who does it, and then now he does it there. He does rim now. Yeah.
Hmm.
And actually I did like a sample call a few years back. I've known Michael for a long time now. And I did a sample call, like a sample thing with him. I forget how long ago, but it was pretty cool. Like, I mean, I don't remember what happened from it, but it was like, yeah.
Another issue as a society, we as Americans like to pigeonhole and label things. When you say someone's got PTSD, it puts that person in a box. The psilocybins apparently have great results with alleviating a lot of PTSD trauma. I'm more concerned with where the trauma has settled based upon the events and how does one release it to some degree. And they've had great success with it. Stays in, you see things in war that these are horrific images.
Yeah.
Human beings have not been nice people since they were human beings. I mean, wars have raged forever.
Yeah.
So maybe that's generational trauma. It's planted early on, but it's how do you get beyond that? Make it a better world? Maybe on a small scale, but on a large scale, we're crazies.
And we'll just keep telling all the stories about them. So there you go.
Okay. I've got my lollipop. I'm in good shape. Until next time,
That's your story. Or that's his story.
is Jamie and Stan signing off from What's Your Story?
Bye, Dad.
Yeah. Love you, babe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thank you for tuning into today's What's Your Story podcast.
To learn more or share your story, go to jamiemarco.com. That's www.jaimemarco.com. And we will see you next time.